Genesis of the Daleks is considered one of the best Doctor Who stories ever. It combines a morally complex plot, iconic performances, and a dark, war-torn atmosphere that elevates the Daleks' origin story into a timeless piece of science fiction. The narrative is substantially more dense than anything we've seen in Season 12 so far. It's not just the script that carries extra weight. The set pieces and ensemble cast add layers of complexity. There's a palpable sense that far more is unfolding on screen. This is the second story in a row where our TARDIS crew is without their trusty blue police box. In the Ark in Space, they leave the TARDIS behind on Space Station Nerva Beacon to beam down to Earth. Then at the end of the Sontaran experiment, they beam back up from Earth to Nerva Beacon. Or at least that's what they think they're doing. The Time Lords hijack their transport and divert them to Skaro, the birthplace of the Daleks, where they want the Doctor to either stop the creation of the Daleks or make them less dangerous. The Time Lords give the Doctor this crappy time ring as his way off the planet. The story idea came from Barry Letts.
Tried all sorts of other things. Terence suggested things, he did, Terry Nation, I suggested things. Nothing seemed really to gel. And then I suddenly had the idea, and I said, look, I'll tell you what, you've never actually shown us the genesis of the Daleks, where they come from. And I use those words.
The overall tone of the 6-part serial is consistently darker and more serious than anything we've had so far in Season 12. While there are a few flashes of whimsy and levity here and there...
Good, well now he's got any chance of a cup of tea?
No tea, Harry.
Suppose something's waiting for us in there.
Better not tell Harry, he's gone first.
The story is a grim, unflinching narrative that traces the origins of the Daleks through a lens of war, authoritarianism, and chilling echoes of Nazism. It's arguably the most mature and thematically weighty story the classic series ever produced. The locations are dirty, gritty, and entirely believable. The lighting and the camera angles make everything more menacing. They seem like very real soldiers in a very real war. Unlike the toy space guns we typically get, Genesis uses guns with actual bullets. The sound of authentic gunfire and convincing portrayal of the guns being fired further enhances the authenticity of the world the story presents. The Nazi allusions in the Khalid military aren't subtle. They're front and center. The uniforms echo the Third Reich. The salutes are unmistakably fascist. Even the rhetoric of racial purity is chillingly familiar.
We must keep the Khalid race pure.
And then comes Davros, who takes it further still. He annihilates his own people to guarantee the Daleks' ascendance as supreme beings. It's a moment that feels like it was ripped straight from Hitler's playbook. Peter Miles delivers Nider with chilling precision, embodying a villain as cold and calculating as any high-ranking Nazi officer. Yet it's Davros who commands the stage. As the chief Khalid scientist, Michael Wisher's portrayal channels unmistakable echoes of Adolf Hitler. The clipped cadence, the fevered intensity, the voice brimming with delusional authority. His rhetoric drips with megalomania, making the comparison to the Führer unavoidable. At one point, Davros even orchestrates his own Night of the Long Knives, ruthlessly purging his rivals to cement control. Many of Doctor Who's monsters and villains can look downright flimsy, but Davros is a striking exception. His costume and makeup are crafted with such precision that the boundary between prosthetics and flesh seems to vanish. When he speaks, the performance and the design fuse seamlessly, making the character feel chillingly real. Violence is everywhere in this story, whether it's the stark realism of guns and firefights, or the sheer number of brutal smackdowns handed out. Genesis doesn't flinch from showing it. Compare that to the Pertwee-era unit tales, where the gunplay often felt like children playing at war with toy soldiers. Here the violence lands with a weight and intensity that hadn't really been presented in the show before this. Elizabeth Sladen truly comes into her own as Sarah in this story. We see a tougher, more resourceful side of her, unafraid to pick up a gun, check the ammunition, and prepare for action. This confidence resurfaces later in Pyramids of Mars, where Sarah handles a rifle with striking competence. At the same time, Sladen captures vulnerability with equal skill. Her terror during the desperate climb up the scaffolding is palpable, etched across her face in a way that makes the danger feel real. It's a performance that solidifies Sarah as one of the show's most dynamic companions. There are a few inconsistencies that I found in watching this story again, and really I'm just nitpicking here, but Sarah is captured by the Mutos and lies unconscious as they get a little creepy with her, and then in the next cut, she's wide awake and just hanging out with the Muto guy who is nice to her throughout the rest of the story. Like, when did she wake up? And wouldn't she be like, what the hell is going on? Sarah is then captured by the Thals and forced to load a rocket with radioactive material, but oddly, this has no effect on her whatsoever. She's fine. She's fine. And while we're on the subject of Sarah, here's something I'd never noticed before rewatching Genesis for this video. The Doctor pulls a set of women's clothes out of a locker in the Khalid dome. Now, I'm sure there are women somewhere among the Khalids, but none appear in this story, and there's no explanation for why perfectly sized clothes for Sarah are stashed alongside explosives and detonators. I know I'm nitpicking here. She looks fantastic in the outfit, so it is what it is. Then there's a contradiction with the availability of ammunition. There's a scene where one of the Khalids talks about hanging the Doctor and Harry to conserve ammunition.
Ammunition is valuable and cannot be wasted. Yes, sir.
Which would naturally be in scarce supply during such a long conflict on a barren planet. But when Sarah and her cohorts attempt to escape the Thal dome, there seems to be no shortage of ammunition, as the Thals fire shot after shot up at the escapees. The Daleks may be among the most iconic villains in Doctor Who, but I've personally never been a fan of them. To me, they're big, clunky salt and pepper shakers with limited mobility and shrill, grating voices. I like to fall asleep to Big Finish audio dramas, but it can never be a Dalek story because those voices they have aren't very conducive to sleep. That said, Genesis of the Daleks lands differently. The presence of Davros, the military, and the scientists behind their creation adds depth, transforming the narrative into something richer than the usual exterminate everything and conquer the universe routine. In this story, the Daleks are woven into a broader tapestry, giving them context that makes them far more compelling. Much of the credit belongs to Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes. Their writing, direction, use of camera angles, lighting, and violence elevates the material. Under their vision, the Daleks shed their clunky image and emerge as genuinely terrifying. It's as near a perfect story as you'll ever see in Doctor Who. So if you haven't seen it, it's required viewing in the world of Classic Who. And if you've already seen it, I'm sure you'll be watching it again soon at some point. As always, thanks for watching. Please give a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.
She would feel grubby and dirty having worn the same clothes for all this time. So
Look, if you've got a Dalek up your arse, you don't worry about your jumper, do you, Ian?